All righty. The Hungarian Grand Prix is in the books, and we are going to talk through it because that was not necessarily the most dramatic of races. In fact, the result was the same as last weekend. But as we got to that result, it couldn't have been more different in terms of who came through and how, because no one, I don't think anyone, expected Max Verstappen to win that race and, more importantly, walk away from the Hungaroring with an 80-point lead going into the summer break. I'm Jonathan Green, and alongside Les Kaiser and Bob Varsha is not here, nor is John Massengale, but we do have the very, very, very on the moment Chris Medland on the line to give us his thoughts on what was another D-Day disaster day for Ferrari and another really, really good strategic day for Red Bull, Les.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking to hear the things that Chris hears in the paddock after the race. So, the highlights to me, Max from 10th spot.
Oh, it's brilliant. All
the way to the top step on the podium. When he went to that medium in that other pit stop, that's when I was like, I think they called that right. Considering the pit cycle that was going to roll, and then the attrition of the hard tires, we saw a few folks go on hards that just didn't make sense. And anyway, it all turned out.
I never thought I'd be able to say this, but this track opened in 1986, and just a year before, we got what we thought was a miracle win in the 500 when Danny Sullivan spun and won. Spin and win, they used to call it, and now we have another. Max Verstappen just did exactly the same thing, and my word, if Ferrari don't lick their wounds and think what could have been, not only did they not get it right strategy, their opponent was still able to only lose one place by spinning.
Yeah, Danny Sullivan handed over. Got a new spin and win guy here. Max totally nailed it, in the race. I love that. That was a cool situation. But then the other one, I got to say that Russell performed better than I expected, leading 30 laps. I did not expect that from him.
I did expect it, but I felt for him because I felt it was his day, but you're right. Well, let's bring on here that Chris Medland is in the thick of it in the Hungaroring. It's now raining, as we kind of anticipated. It didn't come to the last lap. Chris, your thoughts straight off the bat on what was a really interesting Hungarian Grand Prix?
Oh, Ferrari.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch.
That's it's just how can you get strategy so wrong so many times? And it just seemed to be a knee-jerk reaction to what's happening behind. Pit wrong side. We had an example from Alpine that the hard was difficult, and they got it wrong. But you're wrong. That shouldn't have shown what right it was for Max. That's it. That was pretty sensational. I mean, we spoke to Christian Horner, didn't we, on the grid, and he said, top 5, we'll take that. That'll be where we can get to. And this race that Ferrari earmarked for one. This is hard. We can do that. We can win every race between now and the end of the season to get back in this championship fight. Is what Matteo said. Instead, it's a complete reversal with Verstappen winning from 10th. But
well, listen,
not quite what we were expecting to see.
Yeah, Chris, I'm going to stop you there because we need.
I've got a driver with me.
Go on, then.
I've got Alex Albon here. Alex, that look a tough afternoon. Tricky conditions. I mean, it's between rain now. How's it out there for you?
Okay. We kind of did ourselves, made it hard after collisioning that one. So myself to blame. I think it's a tricky one. We it's hard for us to pass. So we looked very easily and went wide in turn 2. And the other car in front was coming back inside, kind of preparing turn 3. So it was kind of like I was drifting out, he was drifting in. And then it was tricky because you basically have to force yourself to.
Okay, well, we just lost Chris for a moment there. Let's hope he can put some more money in the belly meter. But I am glad to say that Bob Varsha is with us. Wasn't necessarily expecting you, Bob, but what's your take? Oh, hang on.
You've got blue flags. As soon as you do a blue flag, you have to cool down tires, which you don't want to be doing. It's just an endless cycle of.
We did have, for a moment there, Medland with Albon there for a second. We've just got a bad connection, Chris. If you can hear me, try to join us again, but keep going because we love to hear from the drivers. Obviously, Albon explaining his woes, but let me bring Bob in here. Bob, your take on what was another disaster for Ferrari.
Well, I'm going to have to get some facts before I pass judgment. I just finished up with festivities in Rome with Formula E, but I had to get back here because my colleague Ryan Marine and I were sort of following the race in Hungary out of the corner of our eyes while we were following the one that we were getting paid to do. So it certainly sounds like another surprising race in Hungary. I mean, did Ferrari shoot themselves in the foot again? When I heard Max Verstappen was up front, I thought, oh boy, another page in the legend. So yeah, you guys tell me, what we get out of Hungary?
Well, exactly. I mean, Mark Priestley on the BBC, their pundit for the weekend, was not holding back, quite rightly, and I agree with him. He basically pointed the finger, and even our own Paul Bryan, who writes in and tweets some very good stuff, he said, Binotto, is he using a dartboard? The bottom line is they got it wrong on strategy again. Leclerc and Sainz, the two fastest cars, they just reacted badly to what was going on behind them. And they came in and they chose hard tires, and they shouldn't have done, and they couldn't get anywhere with them. And, Leclerc went from first to sixth at one point. Hamilton starts to come through. Verstappen starts to come through. They got their strategy right. There was always imminent rain. But the bottom line is they were just the wrong choices, and everybody knew it. I mean, I've never driven a Formula One car. I've never stood on the pit lane. I don't pretend to profess that I could be a team manager in any way, shape, or form. But I'm a soccer fan, and I'm happy to talk about the lineup of a soccer team any time of the day, because I have played soccer at least, and I will have a go at the manager. And I've got to say, Binotto's had so many chances to get this right. The car is good. The design of the car is good. They've got two of the best drivers in the world, and they go into the summer break with an 80-point deficit to a car that has not been the most reliable. Right. And frankly, they have just taken their chances better.
I question how much is the strategy actually in Binotto's lap in these roles?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's exactly the point I was going to make, Les, before we hit Binotto. His job is not to make the strategy. His job is to explain why the strategists that he's paying made the decisions they did. And that is not going to be an easy task in front of the bloodthirsty Italian media during these next 3 weeks.
And we've heard on the radio live and at the time from Carlos Sainz, you mentioned the pre-show, Bob, that, don't make up decisions, don't make up scenarios. And now again, Charles Leclerc, he hasn't said anything. I mean, last week he blew it, but the bottom line is, for whatever reason, they're blowing it week after week. And whoever is making these strategy calls, when everybody else can see it, the Emperor's clothing is not good. So I don't know what happens. They have to have a rethink. But I'm with Priestley on this one. I really do believe, and Ferrari does do this time to time. They will bring out the night of the long knives if they feel, because Bob, the whole of Italy will be all over the papers tomorrow, all over the media, crucifying the red team because they should be winning.
I think the thing that better happen is Binotto ought to replace his strategist.
Well, he has to. As a leader, he needs to. Yeah,
summer break. He needs to own that, manage that, make it happen, or else he's gone also.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's not good, Ferrari, out of all the teams in Formula One, Ferrari live and die on their performance in Formula One because they are basically a Formula One team with a rather nice road car to go along with it, not the other way round, as in so many other cases. So, if Ferrari can't pull it out, they've got a beautiful car. I still think it's the best looking car. But it also, when you're second and third on the grid, to not have both cars on the podium when there was no real drama, plus your opponents are spinning, and the guy that starts spins,
right?
It's it's pretty ugly,
and gonna get uglier from the sound of it.
Well, would you go with Binotto's head, or would you go, like Les says, with the strategists?
Oh yeah, I would definitely shake up my strategy team. Binotto's going to need to explain himself and explain how he's going to fix it, because this has happened too many times now in 13 races. To too many times. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody is entitled to a mistake every now and then. But it's happened too many times to Ferrari thus far this season. And Verstappen's threatening to make what was a very competitive season into a runaway.
Into a walkover, yeah.
Really is. Hey, we can't go too far without acknowledging that Mr. Varsha won our predictions.
Oh, he did?
He came closest.
All right.
I'll say
Well done, Bob.
two of the three of his guys are on podium. So Russell and Verstappen.
Horseshoes and hand grenades.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
All right, we'll give Bob the prize for this week then, no question about it. But
well, there's the solution. Make a prediction and don't watch the race.
There you go. That's the easy way of doing it.
I guarantee I'll watch the replay.
Well, and also hats off to Lewis Hamilton to beat his own teammate and do it on track, not by strategy per se. All right, Russell said his tyres weren't as good in that last stint, but you still got to take nothing away from Lewis Hamilton, who had a DRS issue during qualifying, and were it not for that, he could have been further up the board. But a great way to finish his run into the summer as well.
I'll go as far as saying, had he started out higher up on the grid towards the front,
Could have won it.
he might have taken that top step past Max.
All right. How long we got you, Bob? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'll hang in to the end. I honestly thought you guys would be in the waning minutes of this one, but then I thought, well, it is Hungary, and
Yeah.
that one goes for a long time, especially if it started to rain, as we suspected it might.
Yeah, and he kept sort of, it might do, and we literally got it under the safety caution of, we went to a virtual safety when Bottas conked out on the penultimate lap, and then we literally got rain on the last lap, so Verstappen was hanging on, but he already had a ridiculous lead by then, so everybody tiptoes to the finish, but it really was a pretty impressive run. Les?
Yeah, the one thing that changed from the flag that we saw, remember Daniel Ricciardo got a 5-second penalty induced over his bump and pit maneuver on Stroll.
Yep.
And so that took him from 13th to 15th.
Fair enough. All right, well, listen, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with more to talk about. And Lee, let's hear from you, 512-643-5483. We want to hear what you have to say about the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Welcome back as we start to look at what was a very interesting Hungarian Grand Prix. And the Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, at the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM.
You know, I'm not sure Gene's going to be happy with Mick in 14 and K-Mag in 16 today.
No, it wasn't a good day at the office for Haas, was it really?
No, I don't think so.
Well, they tried a strategy. They went on the hard tires. Here's what I don't understand. We all heard from Chris Medland. By the way, we're hoping to get Chris back on. He's just had a bit of a techo problem, but he's going to try and get some interviews for us and join us in a moment. But we all heard from Mario Isola, the head of Pirelli, before the start of the race, rain or not, that the hard tire wasn't working. And all the teams found that out yesterday when they tried it in free practice. It wasn't working. Now, the lower temperatures may have given somebody an idea that it might last a little longer. And so, sure, Haas tried it. What's to lose? But then Ferrari do it. And, of course, it fails miserably and they go backwards. So it's decisions like that are so obviously wrong for a contender that the Red Bull and Mercedes would never have thought of doing that, and yet Ferrari does it. Go ahead, Bob.
Customer team out there, isn't that what you use them for?
Yeah.
Is, hey, you guys put this tire on and let's see what you can do with it. And yet somehow they decided that was the right move. I don't get it.
Yeah, and what is unfortunate is that it's taking the gusto away from what is a brilliant run by Red Bull and Max Verstappen, who, let's face it, won controversially, whether, I don't want to keep digging up last year's Abu Dhabi, but, there's no question he wanted to go and win another title and take it fair and square and show us just how good he is. and he's doing just that. But at the moment, the competition is just not there. I hope this vein of form for Mercedes continues, and we genuinely get Russell and Mercedes, forget Ferrari for a second, actually pushing Red Bull all the way, because that's what we want. Because so far, Ferrari have not lived up to the contender, merit, if you will.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I love the jumbled up mix of cars and finishing we've been seeing this year. Max is certainly leading the pointed in, but seeing Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari all dicing around, Alpine is who I think is going to continue to apply pressure. I think they're going to come on and finish up stronger than we expected. No.
Well, they were tripping over themselves because right from the get-go, Alonso and Ocon made a move on Alonso right at the start, and that just got the fiery blood going in the Spaniard, and he and Ocon were overtaken at one point by Ricardo. On one corner, both cars taken. So not a good move, but I agree with you. Alpine are coming.
Yeah, I think they need, I'm sure there's going to be a discussion in there of, hey, quit that, go and try to follow each other through and draft if nothing else. But I think they burned up too much effort on each other. And then you had Ricardo, the, Wiley Fox Badger, to go jump in through there.
Well, listen, we got a caller on the line. Vince in Toronto is on the line. Vince, what do you got?
I just want to say you guys do a great job. I listen to you all the time when I leave Toronto to drive to my cottage up north. And
we can do the show from there if you like.
Give him front row seat.
I hate you already, Vince.
Yeah, Vince, where's the cottage? Give us the address and the GOP, the GPS.
In the Lake Country.
Thornbury,
All
Collingwood.
right, I'm in.
From Toronto to Collingwood, it's a 2-hour drive, and I always make sure I do the drive when your show's on.
Good man.
Oh, Collingwood. Hey, my old ski racing buddy, Todd Brooker, is from Collingwood, I believe.
Yeah, that's
one of the
right.
crazy
George
conducts
and Pete.
downhillers.
Hey.
But I was in Hungary in 1997 for the race. I had paddock tickets. Bob, you forgot to mention the nightlife there is unbelievable. You know about it.
Well,
Bob was
certain
working.
Things have to go. One thing I also didn't mention was the first time I went to Hungary.
Burger. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah, I was at that race too.
I was going into the circuit in the late 80s, and there were a bunch of signposts, restrooms this way, pit lane that way, what have you. And one of these signs with an arrow was pointing toward erotic camping.
Ah,
yes.
I kid you not. Erotic camping. I always wondered what that was because, of course, I never
What the
investigated.
hell have we gotten into here?
no pegs.
Yeah, there's no place like Hungary.
It's no pegs allowed, I think.
Yeah.
I had the four days unbelievable in Hungary. I loved it. I'm going to try to go back again, but I'm much older, so those fun days are done. Anyways, keep up the great.
No,
Hey Vince,
come on.
Vince, before you go, are we going over the top with Ferrari? As a Ferrari man, I'm sure with your memories of Mr. Villeneuve, you must be feeling for the Ferrari tifosi at the moment.
Yeah, I just love the sport, so I don't really have a favorite team, but I did go watch the race when in Australia when Jacques Villeneuve was racing too. I was there as well.
Cool.
But before I got married, I used to go to a different circuit every year. So when marriage clicked in, that was it. The days were done.
Yeah, you tend to get on the same circuit when you get married.
Exactly.
That's why you got to marry a fan.
Okay.
You got to marry a Formula One fan.
There you go. All right, Vince, keep watching and keep doing your drive to the cottage. We'll try to entertain you on the way up there.
Yeah. I always schedule my drive when you guys are on. Keep up the great work. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. Keep listening and keep
Try
watching.
the restaurants on Martha's Island when you go back to Budapest.
There you go.
Good
advice. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We can't go a show without Corvette Mike. We got to have him on.
We could.
I'll tell you what. If he's parked up in Nashville, I might join him because I'm going there on Thursday. But Mike, are you on the line?
I am.
What you doing? Where are you going?
I am traveling in the rain, as in the race, here at the end to get to Nashville and put a load of autos off. But I enjoyed the race. I was just kind of pulling there at the beginning. I said I'd like to see Russell get, half the lead laps in that race. So he got so close, but again, it turned around. Max did the spin and win. That was exciting. Ferrari, I guess, is the top of the list on discussion because what are they doing?
I know.
Yeah.
It's beyond belief, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And Mr. Varsha, I did catch some of the E this weekend, and you've about converted me to a non-sounding racetrack, so I'm listening.
Right on, brother.
Hey, I got a question for Corvette Mike. He is in the neighborhood now. By chance, are you on 40?
I am.
All righty. When you go through Cumberland County, I want to report on that new big 770-acre racetrack that they're building there.
All
Next time you
right.
go through
on
there.
assignment.
Yep, we're going to give him
Ooh,
assignment.
I have not. This is new to me. It's up on the plateau somewhere.
Yes, Plateau Park area, and right
Okay,
next to
I will
40.
put out the.
Just
I will
shy
put
of
out the feelers.
Yep, just shy of 800 acres.
Oh, I like it. Assignment for Corvette Mike.
Wow.
And it
I
is
thought it was a new exit ramp.
yeah, it is a Grand Prix style of circuit.
I mean,
built
you've
up.
got the Corvettes. Couldn't you just unload one or
What's
two?
a few miles on 'em?
Yeah, I mean,
Come
just
on.
make sure they all work.
That would be so nice. But I did feel honored this week, guys. I had a load of vets on and was overtaken by both an Aston Martin and a Alfa Romeo this week on the interstate.
Wow, that's fun.
There you go.
Well, you might be.
Did you pass up a Ferrari on the shoulder with hard tires on it?
Good one, Les.
Too soon? Nah, no, sorry.
You saw
never
it coming.
Too soon.
It still is the fastest hour on the radio, and we enjoy you guys pre and post, and thanks for all you guys do.
Hey, and stay with us, Mike.
Thank you.
Always call in anytime you like. We're always interested to see where you are in the country. Keep on delivering those beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Will do, guys.
All right, travel
All right.
safe, buddy.
All right.
Bob Varsha, go on. Go ahead. You got something on your mind.
Well, yeah, I do. I'm looking at the results here, and I see a story developing, and it involves number 2 drivers.
Yep.
I don't think the driver's title is going to be decided by what somebody's number 2 does, but I think the constructor's title, where all the money resides, could very well be. I mean, Verstappen's brilliance covers the fact that Sergio Perez didn't qualify well and moved up 6 places, get to 5th, but that's not as good as the 1-2 punch that Ferrari put out there. Granted, Ferrari had so much more potential, but they still finished with both cars in the top 6. On the other hand, Daniel Ricciardo let McLaren down again. Norris, the only McLaren in the top 10, is 7th. And then the 2 Alpines, Alonso and Ocon, 8th and 9th. Not a big haul of points, but if both drivers in the team continue to finish close together and they finish in the points, that kind of consistency is really going to matter at the end of the year, I think.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's going to, in the end, going to be the more interesting battle is for those important points and money, as you say, for the Constructors' Championship. I think by the time we get to Austin, it's going to be pretty fruity. We could have some erotic camping, maybe, in Austin.
I'm going to leave that to you.
Yep.
Thank you. Our survey said no. Okie dokie. But looking ahead.
And how about Sebastian Vettel going into 10th place in his final visit?
I know.
To Hungaroring.
And having to do it against Stroll again. Those two just seem to end up next to each other at the end of the race. And a nice little swan song or start of the swan song for Vettel. And who knows? He's unfettered now. Maybe they'll start getting good results.
Yeah.
Well, look,
the tracks coming up.
Lots to talk about because we do have a break now. And I wonder in this season of upgrades at sort of what I would call elongated times. We're used to seeing upgrades in Spain and so on. But I've got a feeling we might just see incremental upgrades as this season ramps up into very, very competitive finish.
I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, you might well. Yeah. Speaking of Vettel, the Aston Martin team rolled out, I'm sure you saw, with a very odd-looking rear wing.
Yep.
With 2 large, I don't know, the only word that comes to mind is burled edges to it that push the regulation to the limit. And I'm sure the aerodynamicists and engineers at all the other teams are saying, hang on, what is this? Is it effective?
Yep.
Should we do one? Should we protest it? That's kind of adding salt to the wound when we're talking about Aston Martin right now. But it shows that these teams are still digging hard, even at the back of the grid, to come up with useful solutions.
Yeah, and Haas just brought their first upgrade of the season just this weekend. I don't think it was a major step forward, and Magnussen didn't seem too excited by it, and it didn't seem to make that much difference between the two of them because Schumacher didn't get it. But I do think we will see sort of incremental and sort of, looking towards the future as well as the now for the races to come.
Yeah, and that wing that you're describing, somebody else described it as like one of the old wooden armchairs that have the kind of rolled off armrest on it. And what it does is it actually kind of deflects wind down with pressure to come back up the lift part of the wing, creating more down pressure. So it does kind of a little rock back and forth of that wind to create that down pressure. It's a really interesting take on it. But you're right, it might be stretching the rules.
Well, listen, our man Chris Medland is working it and has just sent us another interview. He spoke to Mario Isola, the head of Pirelli Motorsport, to get his take on what was a very interesting Hungarian Grand Prix. Here's Chris.
As I told you before the race, the hard tire in this condition was struggling for sure with the warm-up, but also with the level of grip. Most of the drivers were focusing on a medium, soft strategy with different combinations. And there was a bit of graining on the soft that was not completely unexpected considering the conditions and the green track. I would say that the medium was working quite well. The hard was very consistent but slow. That was the only problem. So Alpine tried a one-stop race medium hard. That was an option, and majority of drivers were using soft and medium with a two-stop.
And how was the medium going to do lengthwise? Because if we look at, say, Charles Leclerc's strategy, he'd gone medium. So would he been able to extend that middle stint long enough to go to soft, do you believe?
We have to check the tires and see the wear and take some data. At the moment, it's a bit too early to say.
Bit of a surprise to see such variation, though, today, I guess. Do you think part of it as well, when it's raining, people are worried that they might have to mix it up?
Variations were not unexpected because talking to the teams before the race, there was not a clear picture on the compounds and how the compounds are working. So when you have this sort of lack of data, then everything becomes more interesting. If you add that weather conditions today were very difficult to read. We had a great, tire-wise, we had a great race, but also the race was good in terms of action on track, so I'm happy.
So we just need more completely different changes in weather, temperatures and sprinkles of rain for every race and we'll be fine?
That's an option, yes.
Perfect. Mario, thank you and have a great break.
Thank you.
There you go. I can't fathom this. He's Italian. Ferrari's Italian. You'd think they'd talk. But anyway, that's just me.
Listen, but do they listen?
Do they listen? Listen, plenty more to come from our wrap-up of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Stay with us. 512-643-5483. We want to hear from you. We got Bob Varsha talking about just what we spoke about just a moment ago, which is tires. After this.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Thank you, Max, and congratulations. That was the drive of a world champion today. Because Mantle, he got the car, he put everything behind him that had gone wrong leading up to that. He could have been frustrated. He could have been, fed up with the fact that he didn't qualify anywhere near the front, but he kept his head down, did his job, and that really was, like I said, the drive of a champion, Les.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we've seen times, in his history, that would have rattled him, but he also showed things passing on the outside, passing on the inside, even the 360 spin, he kept his head in the game. That could have really just totally derailed everything that he had going for him. And so I think that marks a lot of maturity for the guy.
Bob, I want to bring you in here because we did pretty much hear Chris Medland's interview with Mario Isola saying what we all have just said. And I always like, there's nothing wrong with punditry, but I like to hear it from the horse's mouth. The guy that made the tires said the hard was not competitive and was slow. Just in that last interview. So,
yeah,
I mean, who's not listening?
I I think it's pretty obvious in the way we saw tire usage during the course of that race. Yeah, they said going in after a Friday practice, they found that the hard was almost a full second slower than the medium. And everybody spent their time, well, on the soft primarily, because very few teams had fresh sets of soft at the end. Most had used up their allotment. They had one set of hards and then a bunch of mediums, which once again this week was the preferred tire. I don't know. I guess some teams just thought they could get that hard tire up to temp and use it to chew up laps. But clearly that wasn't going to happen today, from what I'm able to glean from this thing.
Got a couple of comments on YouTube. Sanat P says Charles could have gone up to 50 laps and would have done 28 on the medium by then, and the last 20 on softs. Even if he lost track position to a couple of them, he could have regained them like Hamilton did. And T and W living in Udon Thani, Thailand, says Red Bull playing chess, Ferrari playing checkers.
Oh,
good one. I'm writing an article for a Ferrari magazine at the moment, and I'm tearing my hair out as to how to explain the first half of Ferrari's 2022 season. I mean, they looked so good early on, and then the combination of driver mistakes, misfortune, frankly, but also just stubbornness and wrong-headed decisions have just derailed it. I mean, you couldn't find a better case study in how they run their operation. I'd love to know how these decisions are made.
Yeah,
it'd be fun to compare each stop on the pit wall and listen to the conversations and who leads that conversation and who makes the final decision. And yeah, that would heads might roll, but it would be really illuminating. I think,
something's
for
got
the
to
average
happen.
fan.
One of our regulars, Andy P, says, clear again that the Ferrari strategy decision-making process needs to be overhauled. To me, it's more a process issue, and what they have to do is break it down, look at the holes in that process, then fix it. And I have to say, that sounds like a very level-headed approach, but that's not what we're getting. Talking of level heads, Chris Medland rejoins us. I can hear him in the background. Chris, are you there?
I am indeed. I've managed to steal some Wi-Fi. How are we doing?
Good. But we are discussing what you'd expect is, I mean, your Mario interview, excellent, because he said it, black and white. The hards weren't competitive. What are Ferrari doing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm watching Mattia Binotto now basically having to explain himself to basically pretty much every TV station under the sun that they've queued up. I'm seeing if I can stick our mic in there at some stage to
Good luck with
get an
that.
explanation. Then, yeah, exactly. It's a tough one because I think in a weird way, people want to talk to Ferrari more when they mess up because it happens too often.
Yeah.
So they kind of want an explanation. Whereas, when they win, it's like, congratulations, well done, great. But things didn't go wrong. So people are just, I don't know, they're less pushy. So, yeah, he's got a lot of explaining to do right now.
Well, let me ask you a different question, which is, where are Mercedes going into the summer break? I mean, you asked Toto, because he said we weren't expecting to be pole. We'll just see what happens. But, I feel like they've been kind of... just being a little bit cautious about what they say to the media. They don't want to blow their trumpet too much because they know they were on the back foot from the start. But where are they going into the summer break?
I think they're in a very strong position. I think if you look at the way the car's improved, also the way they've managed to find ways of getting more performance out of it. So it's not just been, the upgrades that they brought and how that's worked. But if you look at the fact that this weekend, they completely turned things around and got it to be quicker, having a bad Friday, then that's a very, very good sign. And I think that they're starting to understand their car more now. So I think they're going to be a threat at more and more races. I don't know if we're going to see them winning many. I think they'll win one or two. And I think with the way it's panned out, if with a car that uncompetitive, they're this close to Ferrari, I mean, what's the gap? 30 points in the championship? I think there's every chance they could overhaul that.
Yeah, you're right. It is exactly 30 points. Ferrari in second place still, but almost, like I said, almost 100 off now from Red Bull. So the battle is on for second place, and it's very much entrenched into Ferrari versus Mercedes. And that gap is definitely doable with Russell on great form and Hamilton clearly getting more and more competitive.
Let me
Go ahead,
ask
Bob.
a question here. Chris, what do you think? we've been over this porpoising thing and the proposed solutions by the FIA. And we heard Christian Horner say, we don't need the FIA to step in. The teams are handling this. It's not going to happen overnight, but they'll get it done. Now it appears that what Horner was saying has some validity to it. Do we not need porpoising control with sensors and algorithms and penalties and all of that?
I think it's more going to come down to, there's no like black and white answer to this. It's going to be more an opinion-based thing on, do we want to trust teams with that? Or do the FIA need to step in? And I think the FIA probably have stepped in at the point where it was at its worst and since seen it improve and probably been shown that, no, they don't need to step in. There will be tracks that it's a problem again. But I don't think there'll be many. Because if you think someone like Monza, they're going to be running such low downforce for such a high-speed circuit that it shouldn't be as big an issue there. Spa, maybe. And I think that will be that's why they're kind of trying to push them through by Spa for this year to address it at the track where I guess it would be the biggest problem. But beyond that, I don't think we're going to see a huge amount. And I think that's why the teams are kind of within their rights, many of them, to push back and go, well, hang on, we're not going to need it for next year. It's not going to be such a big problem. We've ironed it out. Because if it's costing them performance, they're not going to do it. And if their drivers can't keep performing to a good level with it, they're not going to do it. So I'd have left it personally up to the teams. But I also get that the second that the FIA have said, this could be a safety issue, we need to address it. If they then don't, and there's one issue, one problem, they are culpable. So they've kind of pinned themselves in a bit of a corner.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because that was the one question mark I had as to whether the FIA would effectively take away some of Red Bull's, if you like, advantage. That's certainly how Mercedes saw it going into this in terms of the argument of the oscillation. But I kind of agree with what Chris has said there, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, in terms of I think they have addressed it at the worst time. But if it's not getting any worse, there are only a few tracks that it would, and it may not actually raise its ugly head, its porpoising head again. Les?
Yeah, I'm going to say, though, my take on this was that the teams were not listening to the drivers.
True.
And that is why I'm all for the drivers saying, okay, I'm good with having a sensory metric that has to be followed, because the teams don't realize how bad this hurts. I mean, we saw Hamilton one race struggling to get out of his car, but let's look at a different sport, NFL, and for that matter, NCAA with shock sensors in the helmets. That translates to the real pain, and I think that is where this helps.
George Russell did a good in-depth on Checkered Flag on the BBC over the weekend and with Andrew Benson, and basically said, because he also represents the drivers, even though he's as young as he is, and he said, his point was the drivers don't need an added bit of danger to their driving, and what he meant by that was, the car's bottoming out, which is, you're always going to go for performance. That's what racing teams do, and racing drivers will follow that to the letter. But if it can be done away with because it's not safe for the drivers to be bouncing the way they are, it's going to have long-term effects eventually, and it's just not good if you can't see properly and you're bouncing all over the place, that they should step in. So the argument's out there, but I like I said, I hadn't heard Chris put it that way, and I quite like it. Chris, are you still there?
I'm on the Red Bull motorhome as we speak, because I'm waiting for Mr. Christian Horner to sum up his first half of the season. I imagine he's a much happier man than Mattia Binotto.
I concur. I think you've done the right thing to put yourself in the safety of the Red Bull hospitality than that of the Ferrari. Words. Tell you what, we'll do. We'll take a short break.
Not that Ferrari would welcome us in, I think.
No. I'll tell you what we'll do, Chris. You carry on. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back to you, and hopefully you'll be in full flow. Stay with us here as we look at the Hungarian Grand Prix on Speed City on SiriusXM.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Nobody says it like Jay. Speed City. Now, CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected, it's interdependent. And because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cyber security by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats. So you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, and what you're trying to do is stop just that. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. And our thanks. I think the boss is racing as well this weekend.
There you go.
At
Could
Spa.
be. Yep, Spa endurance race.
He's a busy boy. So let's revisit, if you will. We've now got a 3-week break, and a lot is made of it in Formula One because it really is wall to wall for those on the circus. And I know that from doing it. Les, you've done a few races, and even if you don't do a full season, you know it can be. You can imagine how laborious it is. They need a break.
Yeah, and you know it taxes everybody, not just the driver. That's one of the things that have come up is they are changing the curfews coming up, and so the teams are going to be allowed 8 exceptions to do some work on Wednesday that previously was not as freely, and so this helps you as a team member, supporting cast, whatever you want to call them, be able to have more time, more predictable, and just with the lengthening of the calendar, not to just wear out and get every last drop of blood out of your teams.
Just had a comment on YouTube. Just joined. Is the race winner this time being discussed? And it's like, yeah, that's true. We haven't really spent too much time. We've been destroying Ferrari, but let's not lose sight of the fact that was a brilliant drive by a brilliant world champion, Bob. You know, when you go from 10th to 1st, and there is no real incident, stroke, weather playing a part in that, it's pretty impressive.
No question. And when I ran down the starting grid this morning in our pre-race show, I said that if Max Verstappen's car is healthy, he's going to come through this field like a tornado, and he did. Now, he said in his pre-race interview with Chris, you got to be patient around the Hungaroring. But boy, if that was patience, then I'll have a double helping, please. I mean, he knew he had the car, and he picked his spots. Remember, this is a place that, you know, Nigel Mansell became a legend in '92 when he went by a whole bunch of people, including Ayrton Senna, just by bombing around, you know what, to the wall the whole time. And I think Verstappen, from what I can glean, put on a pretty similar show today. The guy's obviously, you know, on another planet right now. What's his 8th win in 13 races? I mean, this is going to get pretty sketchy after a while.
This is the season he wanted to have after what was a sort of a strange one to finish with, and an obvious controversial. This is the dominant season he wanted. 80 points he now has ahead. I do want to ask one thing that is a little bit left field, and I keep bringing it up, but I'm still kind of banging that trail. And if you want to join in the conversation, 512-643-5483. But we were talking about this, Les, during the race, and I'd like to get Bob's take on it. We keep saying, or I keep saying, I don't like DRS because we've now got the cars designed to a point where they don't need it. And every time I see a DRS overtake, we watched Ricciardo overtake 2 Alpines in the same corner. That wasn't because of DRS. And if you can we get to a point where maybe we take DRS down to, 40 seconds per race so that you can use it anytime you want, but not for every time you're within a second. What's your feel on that?
I like that idea, frankly. I have no major problem with DRS, but I think a very cogent argument could be made that it is, in fact, unnecessary. I mean, the way you're supposed to pass people is by superior driving skills in a car that has a performance advantage, whether it's a complete advantage throughout the entirety of the race or just in certain corners where your car does something better than the other guy's does. But that's part of the art of race driving. is knowing how to maximize your opportunity to make progress and potentially win a race. I'd like to say something about what Les said earlier about the length of the season and the need for a break. I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, where a mechanic, an anonymous mechanic, wrote a letter in which he explained why people do not understand the stresses of life on the Formula One trail. It's not just about long curfews and all that sort of thing. It's about, complete tear down and build up of race cars back in the shop. It's about traveling enormous distances from continent to continent in economy after getting very little sleep. It's about having spouses and children at home. It's about holidays. It's about summer vacations. It's about school recitals and sports games and stuff like that. So it's about the quality of life. Yeah, you want to commit to Formula One, the most glamorous motorsport in the world. But at the same time, how heavy a price should that commitment cost you? And I loved that letter when it was written, and I think about it a lot in discussions like this about what these teams, they don't get on private jets like the team principals and the head designers and even the race drivers get on. They're there packing everything up, hauling it to the next location, spending long trips cramped up in an economy airplane seat. It's a rough life in lots of ways.
Yeah, and it's funny because I often go to a dinner party or whatever, and people go, "Oh, what do you do?" And I go, "Oh, I follow cars around the world and bikes." And they go, "Oh, that's a dream job." And I go, "Yeah, it is." And then I go, "Well," but then I complain about the travel, and they're like,
"Right,
what's the matter with that guy? What a sourpuss that guy is, complaining about traveling around the world."
Everything is a job at one point or another.
Absolutely. But there's no question, there are some also highlights to that. I mean, Budapest, as you mentioned, a hell of a nightlife, a hell of a place to be. I remember sitting in a bar on the Danube during the Hungarian Grand Prix and thinking, actually, this is a pretty nice place to be. Plus, I want to share with our audience something that I don't often share, which is some of the inside track that Chris was just alluding to when we were off air. And Bob, I think you've experienced this. There's one thing that is unique about Hungary, because it was an Iron Curtain country and because Bernie came in there and sort of brought international sport to that part of the world. One of the most exciting parts about the Hungaroring weekend was the leaving of, because there is a flight or some flights on a Sunday night out of the airport in Budapest. And so you were able to sign up in the media center to the convoy, the police-led convoy that would leave the circuit and take you directly to the airport. And all the citizens of Budapest, millions of them, would come out on the street because they knew that all the F1 drivers in their rental cars, plus all the journalists and anybody who'd signed up, were going to literally race to the airport. And I do remember Mika Hakkinen passing me on the hard shoulder at one point and David Coulthard on the inside of me. And I thought, oh, that's not going to happen very often in my Pinto. Did you ever have any similar experience?
Oh, yeah, very much like that. And we used to do that on the Tour de France as well, because, you'd have 140 riders and all of the support crews and teams and media and what have you, and spectators. And they'd finish in some tiny little ski town on top of a mountain with one road going down. And so you always listened to hear when the convoy was getting ready, and they'd sound a horn, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. And then, we'd wind on down and, folks would jump the queue and all that sort of thing. But you did not want to miss that because you had all of these fans, who'd camped out on the edge of a cliff to watch the riders come up the hill. They all wanted to get their campers down the hill as well. So, it's those police escorts are fun, but they can be pretty darn chaotic.
Hey, we got another caller, Kenny, on the line. We're about to go off the air, but Kenny, you wanted to get a question from California?
Yes, sir. Hey, how do they get all the equipment around the world, the trucks and all the other team equipment that they use? And what are those buildings that they seem to set up at every track? Are they portable units that house for all the different teams?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They just put it all in a Sprinter. No, they don't. They actually charter several 747s to take all the equipment, and something that's Bernie Ecclestone put in place. He actually owns Biggin Hill, an airport in London, and so it's all packed up. But in fact, they've started to actually take less equipment to each and every race. So the F1 Pro guys and some of the guys you'll see often do the commentary and their work from Biggin Hill in London remotely. So, but the big stuff, the cars, et cetera, go on 747 planes, right?
And
it's great fun to watch, but they do not. The transporters, the big beautiful trucks, do not travel outside of Europe. Everybody works out of the big.
Bob, I'm going to stop you.
Boxes.
We're going to finish the show. We got Christian Horner on the line. Christian Horner, last comment from him on his day.
So, Christian, we spoke to you on the grid before the race, and you said top 5 was sort of the realistic target. So how unexpected was a win from 10th for Max?
Yeah, totally unexpected. So phenomenal drive, a great teamwork, great strategy. You know, we had a couple of issues that we had to nurse during the race, but we got on top of them. And yeah, I think that was right up there with one of Max's best races.
And the guys...
Well, there you go. We got the main man talking. My thanks to Les Kaiser, as always, Bob Varsha, Chris Medland, as ever, doing a brilliant job at the Hungaroring. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage here on SiriusXM. I'm Jonathan Green. John will be back in the hot seat next week. And I say next week because we're off for a couple of weeks. We're going to take our summer break. We're going to take a spa, and we'll see you at Spa Francorchamps next time out. Bye-bye for now.
Ciao, y'all.